I'm in front of India House in Paris, and I've just come out of an incredible and amazing panel discussion inside. This was the inaugural panel discussion of India House, and who did we have here? It was Indian cricket legend Rahul Dravid and outgoing coach of the men's team, and Jeff Allardyce, who is CEO of the International Cricket Council, and a host of very important topics were discussed, such as cricket's inclusion in the Olympics and what they are looking forward to in this, as well as the recently concluded T20 Men's World Cup in the USA, and the whole idea of taking cricket as a game beyond India, way beyond India, to other countries and other nations who don't play that much of cricket. And there was a conversation on women's cricket and how that's becoming, a growing sport by the day. Rahul Dravid said that, he has noticed that over the last few years, he said it was not even like this 5 years back, but over the last few years, during summer holidays, more and more parents are enrolling their girls in cricket camps, which he says is a very, very, very bright, prospect going forward. For him, it is an incredibly encouraging trend that parents are encouraging young girls to think of cricket as a career, and so those were the takeaways from today's meeting here, today's panel discussion, an incredible event, fully attended, by media and by Indians and others here. Please watch here for the visuals from this event.
Women's cricket is already going forward. I don't really think it needs anything else. I think it's just fantastic to have both men's and women's events now. It's probably like Jeff said. I think they've separated it at the ICC level, so the men and the women don't play together. But again, at the Olympics, I think it'll be fantastic to have both the men and women's event going on concurrently and at the same time as well. But just I just think it's just incredible to see so even when you talk to people at the grassroots level, I think for me, when I look at back home in India and Bangalore, and you're talking to coaches and you're talking to people at academies, one of the things that they constantly keep telling you is just the level of participation of young girls in cricket now. Every year at every academy, you'll see the percentage of number of girls who enroll in the summer holidays is just growing exponentially, sometimes even more than the boys. The number of girls taking up the sport, and I think that's fantastic for cricket. You have half the population. You cannot exclude half the population. It's great that cricket is now, obviously becoming a lot more inclusive. It's becoming more and more attractive for women, like Jeff said, to be able to pursue the sport. For a young girl and her parents to be able to see that this could potentially be a career. Cricket can potentially be a career. You wouldn't have said that even 5-6 years ago. But to be able to say that now, I think is phenomenal. It will just encourage more and more girls to play the sport. As cricketers and people who are involved in cricket, that's what we want to see, right? We know we compete with a lot of other sports for talent. We compete with other sports for people to participate in our sport. And the more and more girls that we can get to play the sport, the better and better it is. So, yeah, I think it's just terrific that the way women's cricket is going forward.
That deserves a round of. With any event, you're balancing a range of factors, and the recent one, yes, time zone conditions. I went to some games in the Caribbean at 10:30 in the morning, and it was hot and humid, and the crowds weren't as big as they were as when the matches were played in the evening. So you're always juggling the different, competing interests when you're staging a tournament. And even when we look forward to Los Angeles, we've got some meetings coming up in the next, probably the next couple of months around the shape of the cricket tournament for Los Angeles 2028. And those same factors will be, in consideration there. What's the the venue, the number of teams. The one thing you know is you've only got 2 weeks to stage your cricket tournaments. We know that we've got an identical men's tournament and a women's tournament. So, the issue of venues, the number of teams, the number of matches, the time of day, all of those, the qualification process is another one. We've got to make progress on all of those over probably the next two to 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, Harsh is sitting next.
I think I had absolutely no problem with it being at 10:30 in the morning. In fact, as a coach, actually it made the conditions quite even, because a lot of times in the day-night games, dew becomes a huge factor, and a toss can become a big factor, as we saw sometimes even in Australia. But at 10:30, that was not a factor. It was an even-Stevens game for both players. So from a coaching perspective, in fact, I actually didn't mind the 10:30 game. Yes, in terms of facilities, I think it's challenging. Cricket it's not easy. It's not easy to get cricketing facilities where they don't exist. To get that up and running, it's not easy to do that. But again, I think that's where, of course, things may not be perfect every time. But if you want to grow the sport, if you recognize that to truly make it a global game, to make it something that is recognized in not just the Commonwealth nations, but truly all over the world, then you've got to be at events like this, you've got to be at the Olympics, and you've got to make the compromises that are required to be at events like this, even if it means playing in odd hours, and sometimes playing in conditions that might not necessarily be perfect.
Yeah, it's been something that we've been very proud of. I mean, you referred to the 2017 World Cup final, and I remember we were marketing that event and trying to, people talking about the finals at Lords. Is it going to be sold out? And the atmosphere that day was something very different. And from that time on, I mean, in 2018, I think was the first time we separated the T20 World Cups for men and women, and the women's one was in the West Indies as a standalone event. And in Antigua, again, they were getting full houses for the semi-finals and the finals. And then we went to the MCG in 2020 and it had 86,000 people watching the final. And it just has gone from strength to strength. And the cricket fans love women's cricket. And I think that's the quality's high. I remember when, we talk about multi-sport games, but when it's probably 6-7 years ago, we were talking to the Commonwealth Games about potentially having a women's cricket event, and at that time the women's cricket calendar wasn't that full, and so we talked about in 2022 we went to Birmingham with the Commonwealth Games. Now when you look at the calendar, in terms of events, the series, the professional leagues in the major countries, I mean there's a career path there for female athletes in all cricketing countries, and I think that's something we're very, very proud of. And when we get into discussions with the IOC on the Olympics in LA 28, we say, yeah, of course, look at our track record with the women's events and the promotion of the women's game. It's not even a discussion. And both LA and the ICC are saying, if we play a 16 women's event or men's event, we'll play a 16 women's event at the same number of matches. It'll be an identical competition. So it's an agreed position with all of us.
Yeah.